Hello, 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 hello. This is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to my live stream, Sunday Live. We're going to be talking about which Tesla. It's like this is sort of a Tesla buyer's guide. Which of these Teslas is the right vehicle for you, or is the right vehicle for someone else? So we're going to talk about that in some depth. Before I get into it, I want to mention really quick that I will be doing a live stream after this. This live stream will go from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. The next live stream will be at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Daily Live. There's a link in the description below. There's a link at the top of the chat. I'm working on a novel, and ChatGPT is helping me write the novel. I had made progress, and at a certain point, I stalled. And I want to show you how I'm using ChatGPT to write a novel. This is free. If you go to the Daily Live, warrenredlick.locals.com at 2 o'clock, you have to click, I think, sign up. It's free to join, and you can watch the videos for free. That's a platform where people support me, and I certainly appreciate support. But that's what we're doing after. So we're going to talk about the different vehicles. We've got the Model S here. We've got the Model 3 here. We've got the Model Y. We've got the Model X. I'm going to go through all the different variations of them and talk about which vehicle is the right vehicle for various people. So we're going to start with Model 3. Oh, sorry, actually, before I get into that, I want to start with I ask my supporters. So this is Mark Plott. He's also one of our moderators. I ask my supporters for questions in advance of the live stream, and I've got a few. So Mark Plott here asked, "Hi Warren, what's the likelihood of Tesla releasing a rear-wheel drive Model Y in North America?" Just um, for people to see this. The current Model Y options are Model Y, which is they're all all-wheel drive. Model Y all-wheel drive, Model Y long range, and Model Y performance. These prices may have changed slightly in the last day or so. I'm not sure. I think there was a pricing update, but these are close. So the question is there going to be another Model Y that's less expensive than the Model Y all-wheel drive? I think eventually there will be, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon. I don't think there I don't think there's a huge advantage to Tesla to selling a Model Y rear-wheel drive. If there's sufficient demand, my impression is there's sufficient demand for Model Y in its current form. They're going to be scaling up Model Y all-wheel drive. The lithium iron phosphate battery pack that typically goes in a rear-wheel drive Model Y is made in China, so you don't get the same tax break. Um, you know, what would they save? They would reduce one motor, they would reduce a little drivetrain, battery would be cheaper. Maybe that would get them down to $43,000. Then you end up with this question of how does that compare with Model 3 pricing? You know, you're starting to like push Model 3 even further. Because if you got down to, I don't know how much demand there is for that and how important that is. So that we'll deal with that. And then the other set of questions, let me get the Model 3 off the screen. Derwin asks, I've heard that eventually EVs will have such a low total cost of ownership that even if someone gave you an ICE car for free, it would still make more financial sense to buy an EV. How far off in the future to see that becoming true? Um, I think that they will be so inexpensive that new ICE cars won't be able to compete. Yes, Free Kekistan, my Model X does have a yoke steering wheel. That the ICE cars will be so that the ICE cars won't be able to compete. So companies will stop making new ICE cars. So somebody wouldn't give you an existing ICE car, they would give you an old ICE car. And as ICE cars age, internal combustion engine cars age, they become more expensive to handle, to maintain, to keep them working. So at some point, and I think this is more than 10 years from now. At some point, and number one, the price of owning an EV has to come down. I actually think it's really going to happen is people aren't going to bother owning vehicles at all. They're going to ride robo taxis. They're not even going to bother owning vehicles. And if you live in a world where people don't even own vehicles, then it wouldn't make sense. It may not make sense to buy an EV either. It's going to make more sense to just ride in robo taxis. There'll be exceptions. There'll be people who are wealthy, but generally speaking, no. And then Ram asks, what's Tesla's cheapest all-wheel drive model? So within the Model 3 pricing, I'm going to take this off the screen. Within the Model 3 pricing, the cheapest all-wheel drive is $47,240. And within the Model Y, The cheapest all-wheel drive is $47,490. So $47,490 for, then again, the prices may have changed slightly recently. I don't think Model 3 prices changed. So $47,490 for Model Y and $47,240 for Model 3. I think Model Y prices might have gone up since I did this. I'm not sure, but you know, $47,490 for the cheapest Model Y. Now, the cheapest Model Y, I think that's 270 miles of range. The cheapest Model 3 with long range, with all-wheel drive, that has over 320. It's like 40 or 50 miles more range. So they don't really line up. Okay. So let's go back to, let me show you the different pictures. So we've got Model 3, Model S, Model Y over here, and Model X. So the rough thing I would say is, first of all, what's your budget, right? These two cars are crazy expensive. The Model S at its cheapest, let's see, Model S pricing. The least expensive Model S is $88,490. Price may have changed slightly. Basically, it's a $90,000 car. The least expensive Model X is almost $100,000. So you're not buying an S or an X unless you can afford to buy a $90,000 or $100,000 car. So that's the first thing to keep in mind is, you know, these are expensive, right? My Model X, the Model X and the Model S are very expensive cars. Let me switch these up so they make sense. Let me move these around so that makes sense. So Y is up here and 3 is here. These are the inexpensive vehicles, and these are the relatively inexpensive, and these are the expensive vehicles. So you're only buying an S or an X if you can afford to spend a lot of money. They're great cars. There's reason why they're great cars. I'm going to say so that the Model 3, you're talking about a minimum of 40. The Model 3, you're talking about a minimum of $40,000. The Model Y, you're talking about a minimum of $48,000 right now. So here's the rough things I would say. If you are looking for, there's a couple of things you got to ask yourself. What do you need the vehicle for? If you need the vehicle for just driving to work and you don't carry a lot of stuff in it, or almost never carry a lot of stuff in it, and you don't go on road trips, then the Model 3 standard range is the least expensive Tesla you can buy. It does most of the things that you want it to do. I should have mentioned, by the way, when we look at the pricing, we should keep in mind that some of the vehicles get a $7,500 tax credit, and some of the vehicles get a $3,750 tax credit. So that's some adjustment you have to keep in mind. I think the standard range Model 3 only gets a $3,750 tax credit, where the Model Y all-wheel drive gets a $7,500 tax credit. So the pricing is a little closer than it seems. And the S and the X do not qualify for tax credits because they're too expensive. So I've done a lot of road trips. I think one of the biggest things you have to ask yourself is, are you going to do a lot of road trips? And are you going to carry a lot of stuff in your vehicle? Those are two big questions. If you're going to carry a lot of stuff in your vehicle, then the X and the Y are the vehicles that will hold the most stuff. The 3 and the S will carry a lot of stuff, but there's certain limitations on what you can fit in them. So some things may not fit. You know, the trunk opening may not be big enough in a variety of ways. The opening to get into an X and a Y are bigger. The Y is probably bigger. If you got if you got the X and you got the 5 or 7 seat configuration that can fold down the second row seats, then you can fit even more stuff in. I just had this conversation with friends who are like, no, the X can hold a lot of stuff. The 6-seater can hold a lot of stuff. If you are carrying large, bulky objects, long, bulky objects, I just had this issue 2 or 3 times in the last few days. I had a ladder, a significant ladder I was moving, and I had a significant other piece that I wanted to take on one trip to drop one off to one person and one off to another person, and I couldn't fit them both in. Because the second row seats don't fold flat, I had to put one object in between the 2 second row seats, and the other object wouldn't fit in the car once I did that. Either one of them had to go in between the two second row seats, and that just didn't work out. So so a Plaid Model X, the second row doesn't fold flat. If you get a 6-seater Model X, the second row doesn't fold flat. It's not as good for carrying stuff. But like for me personally, the biggest thing I would say, because moving stuff, you can rent a vehicle for a day. If you're going to take your vehicle on a lot of road trips, then the Model S, the range starts to matter. Range starts to matter. My X Plaid has 330 miles of rated range, 340 on the long range. The Model Y tops out at 330. The current generation Model 3 tops out around 325. The previous generation long range Model 3, which you can probably find used if you're careful, has 358 miles of range. And that is pretty good. The thing about road trips that matters depends on where you're driving. The X and the S are super comfortable. They have this air suspension that makes the road a lot quieter, that makes the road a lot more comfortable if you hit rough roads or bumpy roads. So this is why, like for road trips, I think the S is by far the best vehicle because you get basically 400 miles of range. Let me put the specs up on the S. The long range S has 405 miles of range. The Plaid Model S has 396 miles. You're basically talking 400 miles of range. So if you are doing a long range, if you do a lot of long range driving, right? If you just drive around town and you rarely go more than 200 miles in a day, then any Tesla works. Any Tesla works. But if you go on a significant number of road trips, and I've driven my X Plaid 40,000 miles in not quite a year yet. I've driven to California and back. I've driven back to Texas and back twice. I've driven to New York and New Hampshire and back. I do a lot of long driving, and it matters. The other big downside of the X in particular, and I think also of the 3, is when you get to highway speeds, because they have larger frontal surface area, they are taller and they are wider than their counterparts. The Y is taller than the 3. I think it's also taller than the S. The Y is wider than the 3, although I don't think it's as wide as the S. So when you get up to highway speeds, the increased drag matters more on those vehicles. Maybe I may misunderstand the physics there. Buffering? How are we doing? Buffering on your end or mine? Anybody else having issues with the stream? Or is it just Mark Potachnik? I don't know. That's weird. I am showing my stream's bitrate is lower than whatever. I don't know. I don't know how to fix that. Okay. So, so yeah, road tripping, like if you're going to go on a lot of long road trips and you can afford an S, it's great. If you can't afford an S and you want more range, then get a used Model 3 long range that has 350 plus miles of range. If you really value the comfortable ride, and I can say like on Texas roads, the roads tend to get really rough and they tend to get really noisy, and it's a lot quieter in an S or an X than it is in a 3 or a Y. It just is. The air suspension matters, the insulation in the vehicle matters. Those are things I would watch. Those are the things I would watch for. The other big thing is like if you're a nerd about efficiency, by far the most efficient vehicle is the Model 3. The Model 3, 4.5 miles a kilowatt hour. My X, the X is 3.4, 3.3 miles a kilowatt hour. You know, when you go on road trips and you're stopping at superchargers and you're paying 35, 40 cents a kilowatt hour, it starts to add up. That, you know, the 3 is almost 50% more efficient than the X. So you're going to spend you're going to spend not 50% more. You're going to spend about 50% more money on supercharging in an X than you would spend in a 3. The S is close in efficiency to the 3. It's like 4 miles a kilowatt hour, but the 3 is the king of efficiency. And the Y isn't terrible on efficiency. It's roughly comparable to the S. I think it's a little worse than the S, but you just don't get the range on the Y. So then the other thing is, do you want to carry stuff? If you want to carry stuff, the Y and the X in the 5 or 7 seat configurations are great. They're super duper. So let me dive into, let's look at the Model 3. We're going to look at the Model 3 first. So first 3 pricing, the Model 3 rear wheel drives, it's $40,000. I think you only get a $3,500, $3,750 tax credit on the 3 rear wheel drive, 47,240 for the long range, 53,240 for the performance. These, since the batteries are made in the United States, you get a $7,500 tax credit. So that makes the 3 long range, which is 320. We'll see the specs in a minute, but that's 325 plus miles of range. Not that much more expensive than the Model 3 rear-wheel drive. And then we dive into the specs. So the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. I'm personally not a performance junkie, even though I have a Model X Plaid. 5.8 seconds, 0 to 60 used to be reasonably quick. In the Tesla world, that's pretty slow. But you can see 272 miles of range. It charges slower. The maximum charge speed is 170 kilowatts, where most Teslas will charge at 250 kilowatts. So when you hit a supercharging station, you're not going to get as fast charging. Now, in terms of a percentage of the vehicle charging, it'll be about the same. But in terms of adding total miles, it'll be slower. But basically, inexpensive car. If you don't need to do extensive road trips, you don't need a lot of storage, then the Model 3 standard range, the Model 3 rear-wheel drive is great. Also, because it's a lithium iron phosphate battery pack, it's okay to charge to 100%, where you typically don't want to charge the other two Model 3s or most of the other Teslas. You don't typically want to charge them. You can charge them up to 100%, but only if you're going to start driving right away. You generally want to charge them up to 80, 85, 90%. So effective range, the 3 actually is more, the 3 rear-wheel drive is actually more competitive with the other Teslas. So this is a pretty good car. For $40,000 minus $3,750 tax credit, maybe in your state there's additional tax credits. This is a pretty good deal. It's pretty impressive. So I gotta say that if you were looking for a base Tesla, basically under 40 grand for about the price of a loaded Camry, you get one of the best cars in the world. And I'm leaving out, by the way, getting FSD or enhanced autopilot. I'm not bothering to cover that in the video. I recommend getting FSD. I drive FSD beta all the time. I love FSD beta, but you got to make your own decisions on that. If you're leasing, whatever, if you're just going to get a subscription, okay. But if you get a subscription, they can raise the price on you later. I won't dive into that anymore. Okay, so then you get to the long range. The long range is much quicker, 0 to 60. You go from 5.8 seconds, 0 to 60, to 4.2 seconds, 0 to 60. So much, much quicker. Range of 325 plus. Now, I think I got that wrong. I think this vehicle is now going to have a lithium iron phosphate pack, so you're only going to get a $3,750 tax credit. This is making the Model X the Model Y more competitive all the time. But you get all-wheel drive. Here you get the 250 kilowatt max charging rate. That's interesting. You do get the higher charging rate. The vehicle weighs significantly more, 4,000 pounds versus 3,862. So you're adding significant weight because those lithium iron phosphate batteries weigh a lot. But yeah, you get it. It's quicker. It's got more range. In terms of cargo capacity, I think the big thing is if you're like a Tesla junkie like me and you're going to sleep in the car, then Model 3 is okay. Model Y is a little better. Model X 5 and 7 seat is fantastic. Model S is okay. And you get to Model 3 performance, and this is where you get the insane performance. The 3.1 seconds 0 to 60 is crazy fast. It's not as fast as an X Plaid. It's not as fast as an S Plaid. It's about the same acceleration as an S long range. That's crazy fast. And the 315 miles of range is not much less than the long range 3. So, and this is like the ultimate, it's probably the best driving car for the experience of driving a performance car. If you're going to go out on a track. Although the S Plaid is quicker, is faster, I think the 3 has more road feel. Friends I've talked to, I haven't driven I have driven a 3 performance, but not in a long time. And I should mention, I own a 3 long range from back in 2018 rear wheel drive. I own an X Plaid. I've driven a Model Y extensively. I've never driven an S, but the S and the X are close, and I think I have a good sense of them. Okay, so those are the specs on the 3, and again, you can see the pricing now. With the 3 performance, you get this is the thing. With the 3 performance, you get the $7,500 tax credit. I think with the 3 long range and the 3 rear wheel drive, you don't. So that makes the 3 performance pretty competitive with the 3 long range, and you don't lose much range with the 3 performance. So if you want to drive fast or have the ability to drive fast, and you don't want to give up that much range, The 3 performance is a pretty good deal. It's, the best performance for the dollar you're gonna see. All right, so we're gonna switch over now, and we're gonna look at, we'll take Model Y next. Go to Model Y pricing first. So these all get the $7,500 tax credit. So Model Y all-wheel drive, 47,490. So basically $40,000 for this car after the tax credit. Not everyone qualifies for the tax credit. You got to figure out whether you qualify for the tax credit. That's an issue. Um, Model Y long range, which gets, we'll see the range in a second. 3,000 more, 4,000 on top of that for the Model Y performance. Let's look at the specs. So the all-wheel drive Model Y, which is the base Model Y, still gets, you're basically paying $40,000. You still get 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Get a lot of cargo volume. By the way, the 76 cubic feet cargo volume, that's what all the seats folded flat. That's like double the cargo volume of a Fisker Ocean. It's crazy. It's a lot of cargo space inside a Tesla. 279 miles range. This does not get the LFP advantage of charging to 100%. This is the 4680 pack, and I don't think they tell you to charge to 100%. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Notice the charging rate is a little slower at 230 instead of 250. So you're going to get, in terms of percentage of your pack, you'll charge about the same, but in terms of miles added, it's going to be a little slower. This is not a big difference. 230 versus 250 is not a big difference. So that's the standard range. Then you get the long range Model Y. And you get slightly quicker 0 to 60 time. What was the all-wheel drive? Was 5 seconds. So it's only a little bit quicker on the long range. You get 330 miles of range instead of 280 miles of range. So this is the big difference. The Model Y, this is currently, of the inexpensive Teslas, this is the best bargain. And this is the one you get the most range on. You get more range on a Model Y long range than you get on a Model 3 long range because they've gone to, looks like, an LFP pack on the Model 3 long range. Although we'll see what the actual range is. We don't know the actual range on that yet. Here you get the 250 kilowatt charging, same volume. Let's see about the weights are all about the same. And here's the Model Y performance. Now here's where you get performance. You drop from 4.8 seconds 0 to 60 to 3.5 seconds 0 to 60. Range drops quite a bit down to 303 miles from 300. So you lose a lot of range for that performance. Yeah, so I personally don't feel like the Model Y performance makes a lot of sense. I think that if you're going to get a performance vehicle, get a 3. The Y makes sense performance if you are going to carry a lot of stuff some of the time, and you're going to get less range. So it's less of a good road trip car. If you want to carry a lot of stuff and you occasionally want to drive super fast, then the Model Y's performance is a good one. But like me personally, I just think that's the one that fits the least. All right, so let's dive into the expensive end. Model S pricing, 89, basically 90 grand for the base Model S, 109 grand for the Model S Plaid. The S long range, 405 miles range. So this is the longest range Tesla you can get. Basically, really the longest range vehicle. You can get a Lucid Air, but there's all kinds of issues with them. Cargo's only 28 cubic feet, so you can see a big drop off Model Y. But 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, basically the same as the Model 3 performance. So super fast performance for, and great range, like crazy great range. Great car overall. This is, and super comfortable. The S Plaid, you lose about 10 miles of range. You get the insane performance of 0 to 60 in 2 seconds and quarter mile in 9.23 seconds. And it's a little heavier. It's an insane beast. If you can afford it, S Plaid is the arguably best performing car you can buy. For the Model X, you can see that the X Plaid doesn't get and it never did. Saw some article that was commenting on this. The X Plaid never got the big jump. Like, it doesn't cost more than the S Plaid, but it never did. I think for a while the S Plaid cost more than the X Plaid. You can see the X long range gets 348 miles of range. A little more than I thought. I wonder if that changed. The X Plaid gets 333 miles of range. So it's actually 3.5 miles a kilowatt hour on the X long range. X Plaid, 2.5 seconds 0 to 60. And this is what I drive on a daily basis. It is insanely fast. I am shocked by how fast the car is. It's interesting. Top speed is now 163. I remember the top speed being 149. I did tow I did tow a trailer when I moved into this current place. You can see how heavy it is. I think mine was closer to 5,300 pounds. I think they may have reduced the weight somehow in the X, in the X. Um, so like for me personally, having done this now, 3.8 seconds 0 to 60 is still pretty darn good. And getting the 5-seat or 7-seat X and being able to fold the seats down is a big deal if you want to carry stuff or you want to sleep in the car. My friends are like, Warren, if you're buying a $100,000 car, don't sleep in the car, get a hotel. Okay. So let me go back here. So I just wanted to, um, that's sort of a rough summary of all the vehicles. Uh, so, just generally, I wanted to give that sense of, how does it matter? What's the right choice for buying a Tesla for yourself? Oh, not a lot of people watching. Oh, we're not getting the views. Okay. I guess this was the wrong topic for today. All right. Well, uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Model Y has 2-inch hitch option for a bike rack or pulling a trailer. Yeah, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of accessories you can get for all the Teslas. Um, I'm really surprised at the views. Not many people watching. I guess the topic is not appealing, or everybody already knows what they want in a Tesla. Fisker delivered 2 units, Mark Plot. Let me go through the chat here. I'll go reverse from current to the past. So many cars. Let me take these off the screen. I'll just dive into the chat. I'll put things up on the screen if we need to. So Kayak Crazy says Model Y has a 2-inch hitch option for a bike rack or pulling a trailer. Yeah, you can tow with it with a Model Y. If you are aggressive, you can find kits that will allow you to tow with a Model S or a Model 3. Um, it's not that hard to do, and you can actually configure a Model 3. There's a video out there of like how you can configure a Model 3 to tow much larger size. You can tow 10,000 pounds with a Model 3 if you get the right towing hitch setup. Mark Potashnik says Model Y long range or Cybertruck are my only interest. Have to get rich first. Oh, so let me just address a couple of things that I meant to talk about and I didn't get to. Number one, I was talking about the current generation Teslas. You might be waiting for some future Tesla. You might be waiting for Project Highland Model 3. I don't think, or Project Juniper Model Y. I don't think either of those exist. I think those were made up by YouTubers who are desperate to find something to talk about. Model 3 long range just was released, and it's not the Project Highland refresh. So why would they release the long range Model 3 after all this time and it's not Project Highland if Project Highland was real? That doesn't make sense to me. By the way, t-shirts at elonbits.com, stainless steel water bottles at elonbits.com. Keep talking on the Daily Lie. I'll be on the Daily Lie in half an hour. We're going to switch over to the Daily Lie to talk about my writing a novel with ChatGPT. So you might be waiting for Cybertruck. If you're waiting for Cybertruck, you're going to wait for Cybertruck. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I bought my X Plaid, anticipating Cybertruck would be coming and figuring I would sell the Plaid or trade it in for the Cybertruck when the Cybertruck came. And Cybertruck, we keep waiting for Cybertruck. It's like waiting for Godot. But I do think Cybertruck is going to be an amazing vehicle. I'm starting to think, by the way, that when it comes to Model X, I think Model X may go away. I think Model X, they may stop making Model X because there's not a lot of demand for Model X. They decided not to do a left-hand drive model or right-hand drive Model X for British, Australian, Japanese customers. They decided not to make a version with a steering wheel on the other side to match their roadways. And some of my friends are really angry about it. I think the reason is that they've decided not to invest in any more engineering on Model X. Maybe they're still going to continue work on Model S, but I think Model X, just fundamentally, it's too expensive a vehicle to manufacture. I think they just don't make a lot of money on it anymore. As the price of Model X falls, they're just not, because you've got power doors, You've got the Falcon Wing doors. There's a lot of complexity to the Model X. The Model S is a simpler vehicle to make. The 3 and Y are much simpler vehicles to make. I think it's possible that Tesla's going to say, you know what, we're going to ditch the Falcon Wing doors and we're going to go to a new large SUV that will replace the Model X. I think there's a market for that. I think if they made one that was easier to manufacture at low cost, that would be something. If they could get an SUV to sell for under $80,000, that was, reasonably high performance, reasonable luxury. That's, let's say, $20,000 more than what was the pricing on Model Y? Model Y pricing was tops at 54,490, right? So if they had a $79,000 Model X, it would still be $25,000 more than a Model Y. So I think the potential for Tesla to say, you know what, we're going to ditch the existing Model X, we're going to convert that line to only producing Model S. And that would make Model S production more efficient. They're not going to get Model S down to the under $55,000 to get it the $7,500 tax credit, or I think any tax credit. But if they were able to if they were able to focus on Model S production, they might be able to get Model S, get to a $79,000 or even $70,000 Model S and make it more competitive. And when you look at Model 3 pricing, the top Model 3 is $53,000. So if they got Model S down to $70,000 or $75,000, it would still be much more expensive than a Model 3. And let's say they do a $70,000 version of Model S that's not high performance, right? Maybe they make a single motor Model S that gets 350 miles of range with a smaller battery pack, and charge $75,000 for it, and you get the luxury, but they defeature it a little bit. And this is how do you get that luxury platform? Because they talked about selling them in the future, but I just don't see Model X and Model X fitting into that story. So I think if you want to own a Model X, like, this might be the time to buy a Model X before they stop selling it, because you've already got the competitive pressure of the Model Y undercutting Model X. As if you wanted an SUV and you wanted a Tesla, you could buy a Model Y now, and that undercuts the Model X. And now you're going to have Cybertruck competing with Model X as well, right? Because a lot of people who might want the utility of a large SUV are going to say, well, Cybertruck's got more utility. So I think Model X might die. Still super luxury, still really cool to have the Falcon Wing doors. It might become almost a collectible. Mark Plott asks, do I think Tesla should offer a luxe trim for Model 3 and Y with massaging seats and air suspension? No. I think that Model Y has basically unlimited demand. Adding complexity makes it more expensive to manufacture. I don't think there's much of a market for those features. I don't think it's a big deal. Mitchell Woolrich, this is the point. Mitchell Woolrich says, for larger, taller drivers, Model S and X have a lot more room in driver's seat area. That's another comment I wanted to make. The Model 3 and the Model S are hard. I'm tall. I'm 6 feet tall. Now, in terms of comfort, they're all comfortable for a 6-footer at least. And I think up to 6'4", I think all the vehicles are perfectly comfortable once you get in them. Model 3 and Model S are harder to get into. You have to get down more to get under their roof line is so low. Model X and Model Y are easy to get into. So if you're getting older like me, and I'm still quite flexible, so it's not a huge issue for me, but you have to get your head down to get into those cars, and the X and Y are just easier to get into. Mark Plott says, I think Cybertruck SUV is coming. I think an SUV version of Cybertruck would make sense. But even without an SUV version of Cybertruck, a lot of the people who are thinking of buying an X, if they can get a Cybertruck for $80,000 versus buying an X for $100,000, they're going to buy I think Cybertruck probably is going to be under $8. I waver on Cybertruck's pricing, but I think Tesla's going to be going for under $80,000 to get the tax credit, for under $80,000 to basically deal with the existing fleet of electric pickup trucks that are out there, to be competitive on price with them. So I just think that for a variety of reasons, I think that's going to cut into Model X sales. And at some point, it just doesn't make sense to make Model X anymore. I don't think there's anything that's going to cut into Model S sales. And like I said, I think if they stopped making Model X, they would get incremental efficiency in making Model S, and maybe they could make a slightly defeatured Model S with 360 miles, especially if Model 3 is capping out at 325 miles of range, then a 360-mile range Model S with a lot more comfort is still more attractive. And you might be able to sell, and let's say you sold that for $70,000, you might be able to get there. So, Matt Burns, any more thoughts on Troy Tesla's comments on Cybertruck batteries? Troy is predicting Cybertruck will have 350 miles of range. I'm predicting 420 miles of range. Troy is getting Cybertruck at 2.5 miles a kilowatt hour. I'm getting Cybertruck at 3 miles a kilowatt hour. Troy is generally more accurate than me in predictions. But I don't see how. I think Tesla's going to want to deliver more than 400 miles of range in Cybertruck. Given that they were promising 500 miles of range, I think I mean, I'd still take a Cybertruck with 350 miles of range, but I think people are going to want 400 miles of range at least. People are already mad it's not going to be 500 miles of range when I say that. I think the Cybertruck rack picture was fantastic. I don't think I saved that to share. James says, I drove a Volkswagen Passat for a couple weeks while my Y was getting bumper repaired. Wow, the difference in seat comfort when I got my Y back. I'm guessing you're saying that the Model Y is more comfortable. I can't drive gas cars anymore. It's really frustrating to drive a gas car. Yeah, buy a used Model X for more. Yeah, if anybody's thinking about buying a Model X Plaid, let me just put that up here. Mine is red. Anyone's thinking about buying a Model X Plaid, I will be selling my Model X Plaid in August. It's got a lot of miles, 40,000 miles. I will tell you, it still drives like an absolute dream. Just drove it today. I you can put large objects in it, only one at a time, unfortunately, but great road tripping car. Not great for sleeping in because the second row doesn't fall flat. Not great for long objects, but insane performance. 2.5 seconds 0 to 60. There's a video out there of me doing 34 to 120 uphill with two other guys in the car in 6 seconds flat. So, let's see. When they release the 50% more affordable car, do you think that will reduce prices of their other cars? Good question. That's a really good question, Takeover Titan. So the 50% more affordable car, the next generation vehicle, will be, I think it's going to be $20,000, maybe $25,000. And currently, the least expensive Tesla is a $40,000 Model 3. That Model 3 is using, it only gets the 3750 tax credit. So that's going to be an interesting question. Like, I actually think Model 3 may be on its way out. I've said Model X may be on its way out. Maybe Model 3 is going to be on its way out. Maybe the next generation vehicle because they're not building Model 3 in Berlin. They're not building Model 3 in Texas. I think the decision was made that the next generation vehicle is going to displace Model 3. And that's why I think it won't necessarily be an SUV because they're producing Model Y at scale. So it would either be a much smaller SUV, but I think the dominant version is going to be a robo-taxi vehicle that doesn't need to be an SUV format, and having a low roof line and basically small external surface area, small frontal surface area means it won't be able to carry as much cargo. So I think it's going to be the main version of it will be sedan designed to carry people. And will be ultra efficient in terms of efficiency. That's you can see that they're continuing to produce more Model Ys. They're not really scaling up Model 3. Why? They're not scaling up Model 3 because number one, sedans aren't in as much demand. And yeah, this next generation vehicle could really cut into sales of other vehicles. So if you make it not directly competitive to Model Y, it doesn't cut into Model Y, which is your bread and butter. Plaid Model Y, I don't think so. I don't think Plaid. I think the high performance thing doesn't matter in a robo-taxi world. We're heading towards a robo-taxi world. We're heading towards a world where we're trying to deliver mass market transportation. The mission isn't deliver ultra luxury transportation to rich people. The mission isn't deliver high performance transportation to rich people. The mission is to deliver excuse me. The mission is to deliver efficient transportation, low cost transportation to large volumes of people. So Your Logical Nightmare says, I have a Model Y and have been towing up to 1,500 pounds a few times a month for several years with no issue. Yeah, the Teslas will tow great because they have a lot of torque. Do I believe it's not Highlander, it's Project Highland, Matt Burns. I don't believe that Project Highland is real, and I said so earlier. I don't think it makes sense for Tesla to invest in improving Model 3 in a significant way because the next generation vehicle platform is going to undercut Model 3, just like Model Y is undercutting Model X. Cybertruck is going to sideswipe Model X. I think by the way, I think Model X is a great vehicle. And you want to impress people, you open those Falcon Wing doors, and people love seeing the Falcon Wing doors open. The Model X is great in a lot of ways, but yeah. Well, let's see. I think when Tesla releases next generation vehicle, Cybertruck and van, the X and possibly S will go. I think the S will still have a market. I don't see anything cutting into the S's market. Except, the 3 long range was, I think the 3 long range, the 350th mile long range 3 was cutting into the S's range. I think that's part of the reason why they reduced the Model 3's long range down to 325 miles because they didn't want to cut into it. Robert Hirsch says, why would they upgrade the 3 if they're going to discontinue it? Well, they're not really upgrading the 3. I mean, they continually work on engineering on every vehicle they make to make them better. But what upgrade of the 3 have you seen? I haven't seen an upgrade of the 3. Robert Hirsch says, I wonder if they can mass produce the carbon wrap motor of the Plaid. It would be the killer motor for all the vehicles. I don't think the carbon fiber wrapped motor of the Plaid. I have a theory that they're doing the carbon fiber wrap motor for the next generation vehicle platform, that they're going to use a version of that. But my impression from, I think I saw this on Monroe and Associates, that it is an expensive thing to do. So it doesn't necessarily make sense. Unexpected Fire says, I think Project Highland is improving the machine that makes the machine like Ford did at Highland Park all those years ago. It isn't a car. I don't think there's a Project Highland at all. Look, the improving the machine that makes the machine is how they're going to manufacture Cybertruck, how they're going to manufacture the next generation vehicle platform. That's improving the machine that makes the machine. Atgul says, soccer moms love the X. I think soccer moms love the Y also. Rich soccer moms love the X. But soccer moms are going to love Cybertruck, right? The issue is if you want to carry 7 kids and a bunch of stuff, the Model X is probably better. If you have the 7-seat or 6-seat Model X, it's probably better for carrying a bunch of kids and a lot of stuff than the Y, but it's a close call. And the third row on the Y, I think, is a lot smaller than the third row on the X. The third row on the X is surprisingly huge. I've slept in the third row of my X. X is a wonderful car, but I just think that it's archaic. Its time is up, if that makes any sense. Mitchell says new Roadster may never be produced, doesn't fit their mission, and low demand and a distraction. I tend to agree with Mitchell that it doesn't make sense to produce the Roadster. But with that said, I think Franz has said it's coming. I think that there's a lot of people high up in Tesla who ordered them and want them for themselves. There's a lot of rich people on the board, in the executive staff who want to have that Roadster because they want to have the Roadster. It doesn't fit the mission. But it's a Halo car. I think the Plaid S is already the Halo that Roadster was supposed to be. Joe K says, I'm waiting for Project Highland Refresh 3. I think you're going to be waiting a long time. I don't think there's going to be a refresh of 3. I think this makes sense that Model 3 is basically going to be displaced by the next generation vehicle platform. We don't know what the next generation vehicle platform is going to be, but why bother making a 3 when you can make a Y? The Y is the Refresh 3, right? It's the Refresh 3 with significantly more cargo space. It now is the long range 3 is now the longest range of the 3 and Y. 3X Plaid motors, 1 semi truck. Yeah. Have I not seen the leaked photo? Yes, I saw leaked photos of a Model 3. That doesn't mean it's real. Just because somebody leaked some photos doesn't mean they're actually doing it. And okay, different headlights. That's not a significant refresh. That doesn't excite me. Oh. Thank you to moderators Mark Platt, Mark Potashnik, Jim Whitehead. Yes, check out the merch at elonbits.com, the stainless steel water bottles and all that. Please consider supporting me on the Locals platform on Patreon as a YouTube channel member. I'll be doing a live stream after this in about 10 minutes. I'm going to end this live stream. I'm going to go to the Daily Lie and I'm going to do a live stream about my, where is it? Me writing a novel with ChatGPT. I think this is pretty interesting, by the way. I had a very interesting experience with this yesterday. I want to go through what I did and show you what was going on there. Mika Filtenborg says Tesla's $25,000 model will sell better than Y plus 3. Oh, much better. Tesla's, first of all, I think it's a $20,000 model, not a $25,000 model. I think it's going to sell, I think Elon has said it's going to sell more than all other Teslas combined. I think you're going to see that platform is going to sell 5 or 6 million a year, if not more. It may be more than one model, though. I think there's going to be a sedan version for commuters. There's going to be a SUV version, maybe a van version. Who knows what they're going to do? Jim Whitehead says, perhaps if they stop making the X in limited numbers, they will have the space for the Roadster in limited numbers, about 200K each. That's an interesting point. If you stop making the X, does it free up resources to make Roadster? It's an interest, rather than increasing production of Model S, I just think the volume of Roadster is going to be so small. 10,000 a year? I don't know. But I mean, Model X is, I think you got 70,000 a year for S and X combined. I think that's falling. Any update on Japan? I'm going to Japan shortly, and I'm planning to go to Japan on September 1st. Oh, update on Tesla Japan. I don't know. I've got the strong impression now that Giga Japan is not happening, and Japan is not investing. Tesla is not investing a lot in superchargers in Japan or deliveries in Japan. Have I used Google Bard? Yes. I think there's a recent update to Google Bard that they talked about on the All In Pod, and I haven't tried it since the update. Yeah, this is the point. As Mark Plot says, I don't think it's worth investing in Model 3 development. I think it still makes sense to continue developing Model Y. I think the roadmap is Model Y will be a fairly high volume vehicle of 2 million vehicles a year or more. Yeah, maybe even 2.5 or 3 million vehicles a year. But the next generation vehicle will be 6 million or more. And this next generation vehicle will have multiple formats. Margins on Roadster could be 30% like some Porsche cars. Yeah, I mean, margins would be high on Roadster, but the volume is so small that it just doesn't matter. It's just a divergence from the mission. But I just think there's enough execs at Tesla and board members at Tesla who probably want their high level investors like Jurvetson or whatever, who just really want their Roadster, that it's probably going to happen just for fun. Bard is not allowed in Europe. Interesting. Japan is satisfied easily through China. I just think that the current generation 3 and Y are not going to sell big in Japan. The next generation vehicle will probably sell bigger in Japan. But, is there some issue with getting into the Japanese market? I haven't figured it out yet. I don't think the Japanese like Chinese cars. I haven't studied that closely, though, so don't hold me to that. Just look, we got about 5 minutes before we're going to end this stream. Maybe the next generation will be subcompact at that price. It's going to be small, I think. Oh, hi, Alex. Alex Iser was in the chat. Alex says, of course, prices will come down on all models when next-gen vehicles come out in mass. Prices on Model Y are going to come down as they increase manufacturing volume, right? As they get the cost of batteries down, as they switch to 4680s and they get their manufacturing cost of 4680s down, as the price of lithium iron phosphate batteries. I think at some point we're going to see lithium iron phosphate batteries produced in the United States. Getting that IRA tax credit is going to lower costs there. I think a variety of things are happening that will reduce Model Y cost, and Model Y in the long run, even though prices are rising right now. Where's Model Y pricing? Model Y pricing. So right now, Model Y starts at 48 grand, goes up to 55 grand. You get the tax credit. This is basically a $40,000 car. I think you're going to see this, this is going to go up and down, but over time, as they scale production at Texas and Berlin, they're probably that's probably it. Texas and Berlin are probably the last places they're going to make Model Y. But as they scale production, I think this price, the Model Y all-wheel drive gets down to 45,000. I don't think it gets down to 40,000, but it might get closer to $40,000 for the Model Y as they get their cell costs down, as they get other manufacturing improvements down, as they get to the next generation structural pack design. I think this will come down. So, Model Y will come down. I don't think it gets all the way down to 40 grand, but maybe 42 grand or something like that. And that brings the total price down to around $35,000 after the tax credit. And the range will probably go up a little bit when they use the next generation Cybertruck 4680 cell chemistry. Johnny Fradley, have you gone to any Japanese dating sites yet? No, not yet. I don't think it makes sense to go to Japanese dating sites until September. Um, offering a single motor LFP Model Y. Party says offering a single motor LFP Model Y will boost demand due to it being the cheapest Y. A single motor rear wheel drive lithium iron phosphate Model Y. I don't know if that saves that much compared to a 4680 all wheel drive Model Y when they're manufacturing at scale. A single motor structural pack 4680 Model Y from Texas might actually be less expensive with the extra tax credit compared to a Chinese battery LFP until they get to lithium iron phosphate made in the US, which doesn't look like that's happening for at least a couple years. They need to make the Model 3 cheaper so that it's not cannibalized by Gen 3. They can't make it cheap enough to not be cannibalized by Gen 3. The Gen 3 vehicle is going to be a better vehicle too. It's going to have a 1000-volt architecture. It's going to have 48-volt architecture. It's going to have the unboxed process for manufacturing. It's probably going to have a structural pack. It's going to have, it's going to have a lot of advantages. So I think the 3, just to be clear, I think the Model 3 is a great car. If you're thinking about buying a Model 3, I think the Model 3 is arguably the best Tesla you can own right now for efficient driving, road tripping, just all around town driving, low cost, efficiency. I think the Model 3 right now is the best Tesla you can buy in some ways. I think Tesla will need hardware 4 to reach level 4 and 5. No. Portfolio, no one knows how much the cost of Model Y will go down if they double the numbers. Nobody can know that. I mean, it's ultimately you've got battery costs, you've got materials cost. I think there's a lower limit, like 40, I don't think they're going to get Model Y down below 40,000. I don't even think they'll get it to 40,000. Yeah, I think the Tesla Roadster was 200,000 starting and then 250 for the whatever edition. All right. So I'm going to start the next stream in 5 minutes. I think it's a good time to wrap this up now. I'm not sure why we didn't get as many views today. Maybe the topic was not the right topic. It was worth a try. And I do want to mention, by the way, if you are thinking about buying a Tesla, I have a link in the description below to my referral code. If you buy a Tesla, I think you get some bonus by buying a Tesla with my referral code, and I get some bonus for you buying a Tesla with my referral code. So if you're thinking about buying a Tesla, please check out the video description below, click the link, and buy a Tesla through that. And I think I get some supercharging miles, and maybe you get some supercharging miles. I don't remember what the bonus is, but there's some kind of bonus. If you're going to buy one, buy it that way. Like I said, I love the Model 3. I love every Tesla. I think every Tesla is a great vehicle. I think they're all great for what you want. The Model S is the ultimate luxury cruiser. The Model X is the ultimate luxury SUV. Model 3 is the super efficient, great car and great track car if you get the performance. Even the long-range Model 3 is a great driving car. At least the previous generation nickel-based long-range Model 3 was a great driving car. I think that the current generation will also be a great driving car. And Model Y is just a great all-around car. The Model Y is probably the best car on the road today, just sort of as an all-around car. So why not a middle-class roadster like the Miata? Because there's just not enough volume to justify those vehicles. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you to moderators. Please check out the merch at elonbits.com. Please support me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, as a YouTube channel member, or as a Twitter subscriber. Links to all that in the description below. Please check out my other videos. Like this video, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for